Hello there. They call me Mr. E. Now, we have been led to believe here in the 21st century that equality is a good thing, or conversely, inequality is bad. But where does this come from? Have humans always thought about equality? During the Middle Ages, the word was never used. Not because it was rejected, but the concept had never occurred to people. Hierarchy was natural. But somewhere between then and now, equality became important. Now, where it came from will undoubtedly make you question reality, so keep on watching to find out. But more importantly, I'm here to break it to you that the inequality debate is used today to stop you thinking outside the square. It's anti-revolutionary. Let's explore this. The idea of equality is based on a massive underlying assumption that humans have lived equally sometime in our collective past, and therefore a return to this innocence is a good thing. In a nutshell, equality was a thing of pre-civilized humans, hunters and gatherers and simple people. But in the real world, today, this just can't happen. We try to be as equal as possible, but even the most progressive thinkers among us wouldn't think that you could have absolute equality in the modern world. This is the problem with the equality/inequality debate. It is based on the assumption that it happened in the past and is reserved for primitive humans, and that we accept a level of constraint in our existence to have the niceties of modern life. And so, from the get-go, the discussion of equality is self-defeating because it's unobtainable. This comes from the Enlightenment. There are two schools of thought. There is the Hobbesian idea that humans were all living equally in states of tribal terror, a dog-eat-dog world like The Walking Dead, where human communities were constantly at war with one another and death lurked around every corner. Or the more romantic view of primitive humans living as noble savages from Rousseau, who saw them as innocent equals living in touch with nature. In both these narratives, though, humans, at one point, traded their primitive freedom or lost their equality to live in complex societies with class distinctions and state power. The trade-off being that modern humans are more prosperous and happy than any humans that have ever lived on Earth before us. But I think we all know that this idea is being debunked daily, and we probably are not as happy as our primitive ancestors as we'd like to think, although we have more material possessions. But why did Enlightenment thinkers even touch on inequality in the first place? Why? Well, it's because of contact with indigenous peoples in the Americas. From the first Spanish voyages in the 1500s onwards, Europeans who travelled to the New World made startling observations and accounts that rocked Western thought to its core. You could say American social ideas, indigenous that is, have been some of the most important contributions to modern thinking ever. Europeans and indigenous Americans would learn each other's languages and then enter into debates comparing each other's way of life and philosophy. And the American intellectuals significantly influenced their European counterparts. European missionaries who were sent to convert the indigenous populations were often awestruck by their relative freedom, generosity, happiness, and intelligence, and found it therefore difficult to make a good case about why Americans should convert to Christianity at all. But beyond being an interesting fact, this was crucial because Europeans, instead of just spreading ideas, they collected them and sent them home. Seminal texts were written and became talking points across Europe. Americans who questioned Europeans about how they could live without freedom in such rigid and competitive and nasty societies based around private property started to shape European thought. The idea of liberty became a thing, and by extension, people started to debate inequality. So fast forward a little bit, and you have two major revolutions, the American and French, centered around the idea of freedom and equality because of contact with new people who offered fresh insights. But is that enough today? We just assume we are free because we live in democracies. Another enormous assumption. And therefore, the inequality debate is left to economists who like to punch numbers and discuss the measure of wealth and its distribution without broaching the real issues, like how wealth equates to social power. And this results in some people's needs being less important than others. Simply, some people's existence is less worthy than those who can afford to pay. Now, focusing on cold measures of inequality misses the point completely and distracts us from reality. There is no acceptable level of inequality. Inequality is inequality, as the Indigenous American critics pointed out long ago. But keeping the discussion to levels of acceptability frames the whole debate beautifully for the establishment, as there is no revolutionary thought, no radical change is pursued, just making things better. Inequality isn't the bad thing, it's accepting that we need to live with it to some extent. Can we imagine a society with true individual freedom where people are equals? And are we prepared to seize it? That's the real question. Now, if you thought that that was interesting, give it a like, leave a comment, and share this with someone who should hear this. And subscribe for more. There is much to learn before we can unlock the revolution. Remember, I am, you are, we are a mystery.